it's a game. It's a game that I'm playing. It's a game that I'm looking to develop myself in playing. And then, yes, of course, there are those moments where, there's unbearable pain, but now I know it's going to do that. There's some comfort in the predictability of the intruder never going away. It just shows up differently. But for me, really, it's to have an empowering way to look at it, that if I weren't getting the aches and pains that I'm getting now, my game's too small.
Welcome to Landmark Difference Makers, where we interview people making a remarkable difference around the world. Get ready to be inspired. Let's jump in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Landmark Difference Makers. My name is Seamus Ford, and today we're going to be interviewing Carolyn Cannistraro. Carolyn's been living with multiple sclerosis for over 2 decades. And despite these hurdles, Carolyn's completed multiple marathons and is an active member of Running A Myelin My Shoes. Her inspiring journey has been featured in Women's Running, MS News Today, the Richmond Times-Dispatch, and she's been interviewed on video many, many times. Her story really exemplifies resilience and determination, and we're very excited for her to be here with us. Carolyn, thank you.
Thank you so much, Seamus. It's like you're sharing this person. It's like, who is this? So thank you for being so generous. You're very kind. And just thank everyone for being here. This is really just extraordinary. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have a live audience for this.
Yeah, really great.
Well, I want to start with the experience of being diagnosed with MS. I know it's 20 years ago now, but that moment or that period of time and coming to that realization, clearly changed your plans.
Yeah.
But can you share about that?
Sure. It's funny. It's almost, I don't even want to count. I stopped counting. It's almost 30 years now, almost. But yeah, it was interesting. I was a young woman, just graduating college. And at the time I was singing, doing a lot of singing, classically trained music. Is a big part of my life. And I literally got the phone call when I was home preparing for singing in a concert, holiday concert, Handel's Messiah. So I literally, and anyone who knows me, I've got the curly iron in one hand and my brush in the other. And the phone rings. And it was a Friday night, December 4th. And I pick up the phone and my doctor says, "Oh, by the way, we know what you have. You have multiple sclerosis." And I thought, okay. I said, "Thank you for telling me, and we'll talk Monday." I hung up the phone, finished curling my hair, because I knew I had a performance to deliver to an audience that was counting on me. So I had the performance, put that to the side that evening. And then I picked it up Monday morning, and we literally started to create a game plan, like sort of a health strategy, if you will, going forward. But that moment, and thank you for reminding me what that was like and for asking that question, because I live life like that, actually. Nothing really stops me or interrupts what I'm at play with. So,
well, one of the things that it changed your plans, clearly. Yeah. What were some of the things that you had to begin making adaptations for? And how long of a period of time did that happen over?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first one was high heel shoes. I loved my 2 to 5 inch high heel shoes all the time. And I defined myself as a woman, my femininity, by wearing high heel shoes. And I knew that wasn't going to be possible anymore. And one of the first sort of moments that I had confronting this diagnosis was I went into a department store, went into the women's shoe section. I just sat there, just looking at all those shoes that I will never wear. And I just started to cry. I was there for about 2 hours. And I'll never forget that moment, because that for me, it's a pair of shoes. And for me, that really was how I identified myself as a woman. So going forward as a young woman, going to the workplace, building relationships, how will people see me? How do I see myself? Now what? And that sort of metaphor of the high heel shoes really became one in which I looked at the rest of my life. Like, what small losses over time will I be dealing with? And the most challenging sort of theme through all of it is the unpredictability of it. It's not like you break your leg, you put it in a cast and do PT and you're good to go 6 weeks later. When I have an exacerbation, when there is inflammation going on, I may never get back to baseline. In a lot of capacities, I haven't. since the early 90s.
It
So
might be worthwhile, just
yeah,
while you're talking about that, to just educate us about MS. I think a lot of people, maybe most people, know someone with MS, and they know a little bit about the symptoms and some of the ways that, but it's more multifaceted than I think most people think. Yeah.
it really is. It's I like to call it the Baskin Robbins of chronic illnesses, if you will, because no one flavor is the same in every patient. And that's the good news and the bad news. So multiple sclerosis is a demyelinating, so a breakdown of what we have in our spinal cord, which is like these myelin sheaths, these protectors, if you will, on like a wire. So if you have your plug in your wall, right? And so in MS, the body attacks itself. So I get the flu. My immune system attacks the flu, kills it off. My immune system also thinks my own proteins in my blood, in my body, are foreigners. So my body constantly attacks itself over time. And so with MS, you'll have anything from a plethora of cognitive challenges, visual impairments, physical challenges. I have been very fortunate in the sense that my challenges are really sort of very limited. I have sensory challenges, like in my hands and my feet. I can't feel my hands or my feet. And the left side of my body, I have numbness from my waist down and weakness. So relatively speaking to some of what we see in terms of our culture, you know, people in Hollywood that have had MS over the years, particularly 40 years ago, you know, it was considered sort of a death sentence. You just wait. You just wait. And now, you know, over the years, you know, medicine is extraordinary. There's so many available options. But yes, Seamus, to answer your question, it really is everything from some people have no symptoms. And for the first 12 years, I didn't really have any, except the sensory that no one could see. To people, you know, have a progressive form where it's consistently getting worse over time. And, you know, some people don't ever have a chance really to have a productive life. Their life is hijacked, is cut short. And, you know, it's a very challenging diagnosis to live with. Women are 4 times as likely to get it as men. If men do it statistically, if they do get it, it's usually when they're older. So, you know, either way you cut it, it's not a good deal. And it's
What percentage of the population lives with MS? Do you know?
I know for women, it's about 400,000 women. And I know statistically about 1 in 4, just sort of if of the disabled population, it's kind of like interesting, right? 1 in 4 people that in our lifetime will have a disability, like 25%. You know, whether it's an invisible disability, something visual, you know, it could be any of that. But that's a staggering number because, you know, I look around, people look great, but we don't ever know. I don't ever know what they're dealing with. So yeah, it's definitely humbled me in a lot of ways. But it really is, you know, that it's unpredictable. It's an unpredictable, life-altering diagnosis. And, you know, the challenge for me is always, okay, who am I going to be in the face of it? You know, and I've gone in and out of different spaces. I mean, a lot of grief early on, and a lot of grief sort of as I've been sort of dealing with MS in the last few years. I've had a very fortunate period of time of the last 19 years, very stable, no exacerbations, that's very rare to have that. And I've been on medication, you know, I see my doctors, I'm a very, very good patient. And I do a lot of speaking as well on behalf of the MS Society to newly diagnosed patients to really share, look, it's not the end of your life, it's just a new beginning differently. And that gives me a lot of hope and a lot of satisfaction to be in different MS support groups. Now they're more virtual than they were before the pandemic, but really, you know, having these families and these young men and women coming to hear about what, you know, I remember myself, what does this mean for my future in relationships? What does this mean for my future with career? What does this mean for my future in walking down the block? I mean, going to the grocery store for me is an impossible task. And how do I normalize my life to the degree that I can, that I'm able to?
Well,
It's
that's an interesting thing, to normalize your life. What's determining normal?
yeah, exactly. You know, yeah, it's some variation of not this, some variation of not the club that I'm in.
Mhm.
And there was a real defiance in the beginning. Like I did not sign on for this. This was not part of the deal at all. And so why me was a very big question I asked myself for a long time. And then as I started to deal with it not going away, and I remember one of my earliest neurologists had said to me, oh, it'll be as ordinary for you as brushing your teeth. And I remember thinking to myself, never, never. And you know what? It's ordinary as brushing my teeth and my brown hair. Mm-hmm. It really is that unwelcomed house guest that I learned to embrace, to welcome, and actually, if I dare to say, see the silver lining and the gifts in. Because at the end of the day, that's what carries me through. What are those gifts? And there are many. To just have the eyes to see it and to have the community to support me in that conversation, it could be very isolating. And it has been, and it's still
there's another question I wanted to ask you related to that. But I want to get into your running marathons, but I think one of the things people may have a question about is how does it come into play in your relationships? How does it affect your relationships? And I'd imagine, there's close relationships and then there's strangers and kind of a spectrum in between there. And
yeah, that's a really great question. That's the $65 quadrillion question. I have been very good at keeping my professional appearance up. I tend to lead with my professional appearance, with my intelligence, right? And so as far as that could get me early on is how I lived, and my symptoms were invisible for the most part, so I never talked about it. I also isolated myself because I never talked about it. My limitations were in relationships because I didn't want to get to that point where now I've got to actually talk about it. And, what does this mean for the future? And I remember, this is really embarrassing. Actually, I remember in my early 20s, in my late 20s, actually, too, I would go out, on a date here and there. And I had this brilliant idea. I would present my resume, which is very strong business background, educational background, with a pamphlet from the National MS Society, paperclip to the back on pink parchment with a little spritz of perfume. And I thought, I got this. I am doing him a favor. He will know what he is getting. And I did that a couple of times. And I was like, why did I never get a second date? Like, what was wrong with that? It was I had like a brilliant idea. I'm educating you. You know what you're going to get. And it's all taken. You don't have to worry about me. I got it. And I had one very lovely gentleman who said to me at one point, Carolyn, can you just please put your corporate and professional hat to the side and just be yourself? And I was like offended. I thought, oh, why? Who would want to see me day to day, getting up in the morning, 2 hours to stretch, giving myself injections 3 times a week as my medication to stop the progression and deal with the weakness and the exhaustion? I don't even want to deal with that. Who would want to see that? And over the years, I had the whole thing backwards. Over the years, I got very clear. Oh, okay, they actually want me. And so it has been a struggle, and I'm still unconcealing me and revealing me a little bit more these days. But that is really the one missing in my life, if I can be honest enough to say that. Like that, how do I, as I continue to embrace my disability, right, and some of the progression that I'm dealing with now. Plus, I'm getting older, so there's that part too. Not MS related, just aging. The question is like, how do I present myself? Like, or is there no presentation? It's just like you were saying before, Seamus, just showing up, just being yourself, And I realize there's no manual for that one, no script to follow. And that's part of the journey for me too. The ability to just be me and, trust people, really see people as great, huge, amazing human beings that can decide for themselves, what they want in their lives. And that I don't have to shut that down or not even engage. I just don't engage, so it's a life of me being safe.
Yeah. You talked about like an unwanted guest, and
Yeah.
I laughed because the resume and the MS pamphlet is like you invited the unwanted guest on your date.
You know what it was? I was petrified. If I didn't say it on the first date, it wouldn't come out of my mouth.
Yeah. Well,
and it
I
was,
think that's
yeah,
something a lot of people who, don't have a chronic illness don't have that, you know, it's kind of a baseline part of your experience day in and day out. Well, let's talk about running a mile in my shoes and um, how you came to, well, I think there's a little bit of chronology. I don't think I know it, but
okay.
um, and nobody would blame you for just kind of working on having a great life and adapting, but that's not you. You want to make a difference. And
Yeah.
just share with us how it is that you came to journey towards making a difference.
Yeah. And I'll share with you exactly what you said. It's really just brilliant because um, I I knew I wasn't someone who was just going to just live with this and survive this. At some point, I said to myself, look, why not me? You are the best person for this. You are the voice for this conversation in the world. It's like, oh, I mean, I kind of discovered this over time. And so um, it has become now sort of this opportunity for me through sharing my story to have people feel free to share their own, whether it's a chronic illness, whether it's asthma, whether it's shyness. My friends and family will never believe this, but I was very, very shy when I was younger. I was afraid to talk. I was just very quiet. And, shyness can be debilitating if there's not a conversation or some sort of support. So I really invite everyone to, include themselves or the people that I'm just talking about MS, but it could be any self-imposed limitation or real limitation we're dealing with that could just take us out of the game. And so I knew that wasn't an option. And so then what? So then it was a matter of me saying, okay, let's partner together, MS and me, and figure this whole thing out. And at that point, I had a good friend who was very athletic and he was running marathons. And I remember thinking, wow, how cool is that? Like I watched them on TV, like they're really great, extraordinary people who run these marathons. It's like, you could do that someday. I thought to myself, yeah, kind of like, I don't know, space travel or something, going to the moon, something like that I would never do. This was about 6 years ago. He introduced me to someone who, this is this gentleman on the screen right here. It just so happens to be Joe Sorbonelli. He is a dear friend of mine. He is involved with an organization, a charity called Achilles International. And what that organization does globally is their one mission is to empower and support individuals, athletes with a disability, whether it's veterans who have lost, their eyesight, or double amputees, or someone with a traumatic brain injury, or someone like myself with MS, to partner with able-bodied volunteers that run marathons. I'm part of the New York chapter and the New Jersey chapter, and they literally work with us, coach us, train us to get up to speed, and then they participate in the marathons with us. So this thing that was never on my radar. And by the way, I played sports in high school, so it wasn't like I wasn't athletic. Running for me was just the thing you did when you got punished and lost a game. So like, why would I run around a block? To me, that made no sense. However, when I looked at it in the context of this opportunity, like, wow, I could do a marathon. I don't even drive 13 miles. How am I going to do 26.2? And I said, you know what? I'm going to put that thought to the side. I'm going to create some awesome opportunity for myself of just trusting
So when
and going
was your
for it.
first marathon?
It was just last year. It was
And
last November.
for people watching and listening, how did you actually participate in it?
It's a great question. It wasn't how it's so funny. I'm realizing things don't ever turn out the way I think they will. Far much better, far better, but not the way I thought. Like my challenge was to myself to walk 26.2 miles. Why? Because walking is my biggest challenge. I walk with a cane. I have a very weak left side of my body. So walking would be like the victory, the triumph. And I got in touch with New York Roadrunners and Joe, and he said, look, Carolyn, we want you to enjoy the race. Enjoy the race. Everything has to be struggle in life. You got to struggle through, and then you get the trophy. It's like, no, we want you to enjoy the race. Have you thought about hand cycling? I thought back to like as a kid with the tricycle and the little basket. I'm like, I could do this. I could do this. So I got in touch with another charity that partners with Joe and his charity in New York Roadrunners. And I started to train on this really cool hand cycle. And so I ended up doing the marathon on a hand cycle. And so I'll share with you the upper part of my body, very strong. From my waist down, it's very weak. So I said, look, use your assets that are working for you, right? So I took them up on their offer, gave up the whole conversation, like I gotta walk this marathon. And I actually had the time of my life when I did it for the first time last year. It's extraordinary.
And how did you train for it? Like what were the
Yeah,
what did that look like?
Yep, I did everything from going to practices. So every week we have practices in New York and New Jersey. So I would go mostly to New Jersey to train because that's where Joe's team was, and I was a part of that team at the time. And I would just get on the hand cycle, and I would just get used to gears and chains and and turning. So it's different. Running is running, but when you're in a bike, you got to be aware of what just your space and who's around you. And so I trained there. I also was working with a trainer, and the goal was to really develop my upper body. I may say I'm strong, but 26.2 miles of strength is different than my own strength. So I did a lot of cross training, a lot of weights, and even that journey for me was like amazing. Like that, I had something. I had this, we talk about this future that I created of this marathon to pull me out of my everyday, humdrum life when I'm trying to sort of get myself out of bed and get my day started. I'm like, no, I've got this unbelievable endpoint to live into. And so the training was amazing. I loved the training. My trainer was fabulous, working with the guides. So in Achilles, you'll see on this video here, that's me on the hand cycle, actually in the marathon. And there's Joe's behind me. So the way that Achilles works is a charity. They don't just throw you on the bike and say, go have fun, or don't throw you on the course. Every athlete in this charity has 2 able-bodied athletes that run next to them for safety purposes. With 51,000 people on the course in New York, it can get, challenging. So we have a community of, and this is one of my most passionate messages. What would life be like, not only in running, right, but in general, like if we had the able-bodied community and the people who are in a disabled community or hyper-abled even, if those 2 communities came together, what would be possible for people in all walks of life, in any capacity? I mean, to me, that's a future. That's just something I'm standing for, to have it be something where we don't even see each other's differences per se, but we just support each other, empower each other. And, that's how you change the world, I think.
What do you think the able-bodied people get? Well, actually, I have 2 questions. You did this, you crossed the finish line. That future was fulfilled, as you said.
Yeah.
What was that moment like?
Surreal, actually. It was surreal. And I remember crossing the finish line thinking, I could do this again. Let's go. And I knew not to say anything because the 2 lovely gentlemen that were running next to me were already on the pavement on their backs. So I knew I couldn't say that. But for me, and that's kind of how I am with life, I'll, once I get into something, I'm really passionate about it, I want to do it again and again. Like there's no time to rest. There's no, what are you tired from? Let's go. And I saw that in that moment. I said to myself, oh, Carolyn, here's the good and bad news. The good news is you cross the finish line. The bad news is, what's my next new finish line? Whether it be another marathon or developing a relationship or creating the career of my dreams in a new way. What is that next new future? Because you're right, that's complete. So now what am I going to do? And I knew that when I got home that night, the next morning, I got onto their website and I'm like, what am I going to sign up for next? Because I needed something to call me into the future. Otherwise, I'll eat bonbons or watch Netflix all day. Nothing wrong with it, but that's not the future I want for myself. What's that next new challenge? How do I elevate who I am? And this, I mean, and it's so great. People in my life say to me, Carolyn, it took you 6 hours and 1 minute to do the marathon. Acknowledge yourself for that, because I'm already off to the next new finish line. And one of the things that MS has really taught me, one of the gifts, is to be present, to quiet myself, to really get like It's okay to stop and smell the roses. It's okay. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why they wanted me to hand cycle as well. She actually said to me, one of the executives at New York Roadrunner said, look, we want you to take the time to enjoy the 5 boroughs as you go through the course, not just crossing that finish line. And for me, that was another reminder. That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's not just about that end goal. So the gifts that I'm discovering through the diagnosis of MS, I mean, it's I can't even mention all of them. It's forced me to be present. It's forced me to slow myself down. It's forced me to actually, give myself the opportunity to enjoy, my life. And I probably wouldn't have slowed myself down or taken the time to think about that if I were able-bodied. And if I knew, if I didn't have a disability, if I didn't have MS, I would not be doing a marathon. I'd be watching everyone cheering them on. But there's something about, I did the unthinkable. There's something extraordinary in that kind of an action with oneself that to me is life altering and life giving.
There's an undeniable evidence of your ability to do something. Yeah, I've it's been a number of years, but I've run 7 marathons personally.
Amos, you're the hero.
No.
You're my
Uh,
hero.
but I have a question
Okay.
related to that, because I ran them just to run, right? I ran them to, okay, let's see if I can do this thing, and then
Amazing.
it's a little bit like tattoos. You kind of want to do another one,
Amazing.
but it was really kind of just recreation for me, and yet I saw every marathon. Most of my marathons were Chicago, but I did them in other
Wow.
places as well.
So
Um,
great.
but there were people who were running for Team Leukemia. There were people.
Yep.
At times it felt like half the marathon was running for a charity,
Mm.
and for a purpose. And it makes me wonder what it was like for the able-bodied people running with you. What did they share with you after they got up off the pavement?
Yeah, that's so great. They actually said when they got up, let's do this again. And it's funny because when I first joined the organization, I was kind of suspicious, like, what are they doing here? Why are you dedicating your time away from your family, from yourself, from your life to help us? Why? And every single time I've asked that question, it's the same answer. And it's some variation of we are bigger human beings because of the difference we can make with you. We are not the same people we were the day before. And it's just like, oh, really? Okay. I mean, and it's this very clear, and Achilles International is literally across the globe. They do marathons in Tokyo and London and France, all across the world.
What you're
Wherever you go, it's
describing,
that same experience.
one might think, oh, well, that's, you're the beneficiary of the charity, and they're they're the volunteers. But I don't, it seems like there's something more mutual going on there.
It really is. It's a creation. Achilles is an organization where it's thoughtful, it's deliberate, and it's intentional creation. They will look at who the volunteers are, and a lot of them have done it for decades. One of the women that I trained with, she was in her early 20s, and she decided to be a guide because her father guided the marathon a decade before. So in families where there is running, the next generation takes over and continues the tradition. But yeah, there is that element of partnership is sort of a general way to put it. It's like a soulful, intentional connection. And I mean, this is a gentleman here who I know very, very well. He does the marathon backwards.
Hmm.
He wheelchairs himself backwards. He's done like 10 of them. And he gets across the finish line and he does it again and again. So it's not, I discovered for myself, it's not about crossing the finish line, which I thought it might be. It's really about a discovery and an uncovering, at least for me, and I assert for the guides as well, the human spirit, like who
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
are and how far we can go, regardless of what this body gifts us in this life. It's the resilience behind it, I say it is.
It's marathons. If people listening or, here with us have never watched a marathon and just sat on the curb or volunteered, passing out Gatorade, um, I personally completely recommend it. And, when you talk about the human spirit, the way I would describe a marathon is it's a day in the life of a city where people forget to be afraid of each other.
It's great. Oh, love that. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. It's
it's
one.
just
It's one.
yeah.
You're one humanness. We're one humanity. It's the great equalizer. We are one spirit of life. And
Yeah.
you mentioned the individuals who volunteer at the water stations. I mean, I cannot tell you. I mean, people were coming out at like 8 o'clock in the morning with banners and food. And I mean, as you're going down the course, and I'm sure it's the same in Chicago and Boston and all over the world. And I'm thinking these people are getting up to cheer people on they don't even know. And that even as a spectator, it's life altering. They get to taste a little bit of that flavor, that sort of sparkle of what it's like to actually, you know, have that moment in time where after all that
Yeah.
training, here
Yeah.
you are.
It's moving.
Yeah,
I think about how, we're Americans, and, America's kind of famously got this sort of division and partisanship that's happening. But, there's something about just getting back to that experience of being for everybody
yeah,
that's really, really powerful. So that's my
yeah,
endorsement. Go
yeah.
do it if you've never done it.
And to take that even a bit further, what you're saying is amazing. There's no lines of demarcation. There's no willingly so. It's like just sort of this experience in the moment of the human spirit. And I mean, I keep saying that, but as I'm sharing with you, I'm actually really getting it for myself it's not about the running or the hand cycling or the training even. I mean, it is, and that's an extraordinary feat. And then there's the coming together of the human race for the marathon. It blew my mind the number of people that came out just to cheer us on
Mm.
throughout the whole course, and they're getting contributed to, they're getting to make that difference. I mean, my sister is here with my niece and my nephew, and they actually came to show up in New York at the marathon at the end of the line. I didn't even know they were coming in. My sister's like, you're actually gonna do this thing? I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, okay. They all showed up. They surprised me. So people move mountains to support and empower and be a part of the game of human spirit that we're so, all privileged to be a part of.
I one of the things that, um, I think is really a kind of a common theme, with the people we interview is, um, people know they make a difference. And it's not with ego. It's not with, uh, it's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about, the people we've interviewed.
Yeah,
Um, but there's something about relating to yourself, like I'm here, I'm making a difference without ego.
mm,
Um, and I'm wondering if, your, pursuit of this, um, of bringing the able-bodied and the disabled communities together for these amazing
mm.
experiences like marathons. Um, do you experience yourself like I'm here, I'm making a difference?
I hope to. I have moments where I look out at, the people that are spectators or the guys that I'm running with. And, I kind of feel guilty sometimes. I'm like, you sure you want, I kind of go a little slow. I'm not the fastest hand cycler. I don't want to hold you back, and they say to me right off the bat, don't even say that. We are here for you. I just did a race in New Jersey a couple of weeks ago with two women. And they had said to me as we were going through, I said, I'm going up the hill. I'm taking my time. They say, Carolyn, this is for you. We are getting our lives out of helping you. And I'm just like, part of me doesn't even want to understand it because I don't even want to go to understand it. But what I will share is that the experience I had when they shared that moment with me, like we were sharing, it's that moment of humanity. It's that moment of human being connected, related for each other. And there were no words. I mean, it was just it was a moment. And if I, in some small way, can create with my life, with what I'm out to create in the world, moments, just moments where people actually get to taste a flavor of what it's like to do the unthinkable, to achieve the impossible, to have that connection with another, that like that in the zoneness where it's just you can taste it and feel it. If I can accomplish that in some capacity and give that to other people, mission accomplished. I mean, that to me, I don't know how to endure that over time yet. I haven't discovered that.
Well, sorry,
Yeah,
don't normally offer coaching during these interviews, but um, you're saying it right there. It's not about you.
yeah.
It's about having that experience happen where you are.
Mm. Having that experience happen where I am. Yeah,
Yeah. And those people that ran with you, that, got their lives out of being with you. It's, as somebody who's not Carolyn, that's clear. It's obvious. Yeah.
yeah. I remember at one
And
point
it's
she gave
and
me
it's and it's not you. It's not an
no,
egotistical thing, because it's not
no,
about you. It's about what's happening
no. Yeah.
around you.
And to create, you asked earlier, other areas of my life, how do I create those moments when we're, on the course and she gives me some water, right? It just happened a couple of weeks ago. She gave me some water. Like there was that moment of like beauty in drinking some water that she gave to me because I couldn't get off the bike to get it. If I can create those moments of connection, not on a marathon course, but
Mhm.
in, conversations with new people that I'm getting to know or colleagues, like how do we have those sparkly moments of connection every day in our ordinariness of life? How do we bring those moments of sparkle into our ordinary life? That's what I'm out to discover.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, a couple more questions before we wrap up. You've gotten a lot of press. Um, and this is kind of tied to the thing I was asking about a moment ago. You've gotten a lot of press, and um, people are very interested in your story specifically. What do you think is so captivating for storytellers that they want to tell your story?
Hmm. What's so captivating? That I said yes. Someone said to me, you could do this someday. And that day came where I said yes to that request.
Mm,
And, I'm off to the races.
mm,
So yeah, my invitation would be say yes. Raise your hand, raise your digital hand. Say yes. Say yes to life. Say yes to the unthinkable and the impossible, because in doing and going after and standing for those opportunities, the sweetness of life shows up. The joy of being alive, the possibility of being alive shows up in those moments of connection, of training, and of acknowledging and loving myself, learning to love myself with MS right by my side. Like that's where the relationship really is. I mean, that's the first
mm,
moment. That's the sweetest
wow.
moment.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I have one question just before we finish up here. This is one we ask everybody. Um, literally in 100 years, nobody who's listening to this as we're recording it will be here. I mean, it might be an outlier at this point with modern medicine, but by and large, most of us will not be here in 100 years. There's a time, we'll be gone. What do you want people to say about you when you're no longer here?
Mhm. Wow, that's a really great question. That I was brave, bold, and I lived the life I was born to live. Really. Like in the face of everything, to be unstoppable in living life and being alive there's nothing like it. To be a pull for that, to be a stand for that. This is not a dress rehearsal life. So I say, be bold, go for it, and live that life that you were born to live, and discover it if you don't know what it is. Get out there and discover that for yourself. Yeah.
Well, Carolyn, I thank you for being bold and brave.
Thank you.
And living out loud.
Yeah. It's so funny. My sister says to me the other day, she goes, so you're out. So she says, so you're out now? And I thought, is that what this feels like? I said, I guess so. I guess I am.
All right. Well, I really thank you for being here. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for just the joy of this conversation.
Thank you for inviting me to share my dream and really as a gift and an invitation to everyone who's listening now, who's live with us here. Thank you so much for being here. To really just, what are those dreams that you stopped dreaming? Go live them. Go. Make them happen.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Landmark Difference Makers. If you're inspired by what you heard and you want to learn more about Landmark's programs or explore upcoming episodes, visit landmarkforumnews.com to find resources, event details, and more stories of people making extraordinary impact around the globe. If you are already a part of the Landmark community, check out the Landmark subscription, designed to provide ongoing support in creating a life you love. Visit landmarkworldwide.com to learn more. Until next time, keep creating, keep contributing, and keep making a difference.